Now, more First at 4.
The latest American to test positive for Ebola in Africa is back in the U.S. now. A specialized medevac jet landed in Nebraska this morning. Remarkably, freelance journalist Ashoko Mukpo walked off the plane on his own. He tested positive last week for Ebola while working with NBC's Dr. Nancy Snyderman and her crew covering the deadly outbreak in Liberia.
Tentative and frightened, but I think he's strong and his symptoms are not more advanced than when I talked to him before he left, which is a real relief to us.
There is still no FDA-approved treatment for Ebola, so now doctors are coming up with an individualized plan of attack. An Ebola scare in Miami turned out to be a false alarm. Preliminary tests came back negative for a patient there. The CDC will test another sample, though, to be sure, and those results are expected Wednesday. Joining me now to talk more about this outbreak and the scare that really surrounds it is Cheryl Pomer. She is a neurological systems analyst. You have a background in community health. You've no doubt followed this from the get-go, and it's disturbing because people aren't quite sure they understand how Ebola works and is spread and how scared they should be.
Exactly, and I think that's a big part of it when situations like this happen and come into our communities that can affect our lives, our health, our families, and our communities. We can become alarmed, or the best course of action is really to get the best information so you understand what is happening, and then you can make yourself a little bit more safe and secure inside of the situation.
I think that brings us to how scared should people be on U.S. soil? This is largely happening in Africa, but clearly we've seen a few cases come back to U.S. soil.
Yes, and in fact, Ebola has been on the African continent since March. We've had a lot of travel going back and forth, and we've only had this one circumstance that has come forward.
In Dallas?
In Dallas, correct. And I think that we realize now that there was a hole that needed to be plugged. They were doing the safeguards, and how this disease is actually transferred and transmitted, and how vulnerable we are to, contact the disease.
How is it transferred? It's not airborne, I understand.
It's not airborne, it's direct contact, and what that means is through bodily fluids that can happen, that will land on surfaces. You can inadvertently touch that surface, and then you can rub your eye or put your hand in your mouth or near your nose, and these are all things that we tend to do that we don't think about. Now all of a sudden I think we have to be a little bit more aware if this does present itself and how we can protect ourselves. This can stay on they believe on a doorknob or other objects, but in actual fact, it can be cleaned with bleach-based solutions. So we can keep ourselves safe by creating more awareness of the way that we manage ourselves. It also, if you have a break in your skin, now, if I'm fine, I will not have a problem. But if I do come in contact, they do recommend washing, even though you do have a break in the skin. But this would only be in the circumstance that we are dealing with the active virus around us.
Which we are not, really, at this point. You have that Dallas scare.
Right.
But outside of that, do you feel the U.S. is doing as much as it should? We're short on time, and I know that's a big question. But overall, do you think the U.S. is doing what it should be doing?
I think yes. I think that, we've got a lot of organizations that are working together. They have obviously our best interest at heart. There's a lot of science involved, and without becoming alarmed, I think they're doing what they can. They've responded really quickly to plug the hole. It was actually, this gentleman did not let people know on departure that he had been in contact with Ebola, and that it is not contagious unless there's active symptoms.
Okay, and that's very important to know.
That's very important.
I think you've really given us more of an education on that, so we appreciate it today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We do actually have a whole section on WFLA.com dedicated to the latest Ebola outbreak. There's a link on the homepage where you can find the very latest.